Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on basketball, alongside my co-host, Jay, aka Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy? Welcome back on the pod.
Yeah, man, it's been a long time since a man's been in front of a camera. But TV, the NBA Finals is almost over. A big trade happened in the past couple of days, and then they decided to Woj bomb. Oh, excuse me, I guess Shams bomb us
Mom,
this
in
early
the
in the
last like
morning to
20
change up
minutes,
our whole episode. Come
yeah,
on,
like
man,
20 minutes ago.
the NBA
This
offseason
might
is
be
in
like,
full swing, bro.
bro, might be the craziest like last day of the NBA season like ever, because you're gonna have this. You have Game 7 of the NBA Finals. By the time recording, okay, there's a lot of stuff to go to. Obviously, the NBA
Yeah,
Finals is tonight. We're going to be reacting to that tomorrow,
yeah,
so be on the lookout for that episode. But today's episode, we're kind of discombobulated because of this whole KD trade that just happened.
yeah,
So
right.
we're trying to figure stuff out. But we're gonna do our quick reactions to the KD trade. We need to like decompress. We're gonna talk about it more in tomorrow's episode, but we'll give our quick thoughts on it today. We're gonna be doing our yearly NBA mock draft, where me and Jay go back and forth and try and determine who we think is gonna be in the top 14 picks of this draft. Kind of go like we're gonna kind of be the GMs of the teams. Of course, Jay's got the evens, I got the odds, and we're gonna figure that out. And then, of
Mhm.
course, and then we're gonna end today's episode trying to figure out who our top three guys from this draft are. Not who we think the top three is, but kind of three of our favorite prospects in this draft that we're gonna like kind of follow along throughout their NBA career to see how good they are. Like we've had in the past, I was claiming Dennis Smith Jr., Josh Jackson, and all that. We're gonna try and follow throughout and see how good they'll be in the NBA. It's gonna be a great episode, Jay. We have a lot to talk about, and like again, we're discombobulated a bit with this KD stuff, but we're gonna
Yeah.
try to move forward. But
What
before
the
we go into that,
heck?
yeah, crazy trade that we're gonna have to talk about real quick. But before we do that, we do have to plug our socials. Make sure you follow our individual accounts at TV on Basketball, at the Routine Jumper. Those links can be found in the description down below. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws pod, make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram for the best NBA content. Where you have NBA Finals talks, you have the instant quick reactions. I literally just posted my reactions to the KD trade
Shout out
really quick
TV.
just before this episode dropped. So you want to check out all of those reactions and everything, check out the Hit Your Free Throws pod over there, as well as the clips as well. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on any of the podcast networks, Spotify, Apple. Those are the places you can find us. And in terms of the YouTube, remember to hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Jay, you ready to get into this, man? This podcast is already going awry already.
Yeah, man, I'm not gonna lie to you. I was already kind of ripping and running around trying to get myself situated this morning. I was obviously put my big board together because I didn't want to put a formal mock draft together just in case we end
Yeah,
up overlapping on certain picks that we had an idea
yeah.
for. I want to have a couple backups and stuff. Then the KD trade happens. TV's like, oh yeah, so by the way, that episode that we're planning on recording tomorrow, scrap that first part. We're gonna just have to change things because KD's traded. I'm looking at my phone like, am I delayed? What's going on? He said, yeah, it happened 5 minutes ago. I see everything pop up all at one time. I'm like, my internet must be broken because this is insane. So here we are now,
Yeah,
14 picks, big board. My big board is 25 deep just in case. But before that, TV, we
we
have
gotta
to
be,
address the elephant in the room.
we have to. There's just
We
no way we're
have
going to be
to.
able to go through it. We have to. And
Oh,
here's the
man.
official trade. Oh my goodness. Kevin Durant. By the way, while this was happening, this man was doing a Fanatics panel. There was
Right.
Fanatics Fix happening in New York right now, and he's on panel. There's people like, yelling at him that you've got traded to Houston. And
Crazy.
they're just trying to go about the whole interview, think that nothing's happening. But here's the official trade. Shams dropped it. KD to the Houston Rockets for the 10th pick. Jay, this is what I was talking about moving to the big board because now the Phoenix are in the top 14.
What
We
the
got that. We got
heck?
the 10th pick going over to Phoenix. We have Jalen Green going over to Phoenix as well as Dylan Brooks and 5 second-round picks. KD and his expiring contract going over to the Houston Rockets after finishing second place in the Western Conference and taking the Golden State Warriors to 7. They're like, nah. We're not having those offensive worries going into next season. We got one of the best scores of all time. Jay, I did my thoughts on TikTok. I want to hear your immediate thoughts on this trade.
Bro, okay, so there's a million different routes for this, right? The first thing that
Yeah,
I go for is, wow, the fact that Phoenix was able to get the 10th overall pick, a young player that is signed for the next 2 years in Jalen Green, and Dylan Brooks, who arguably had a career season last year, puts
yeah,
them in a real strong contention to not only maybe have a strong season next year if they were just to keep the guys that were acquired through this trade,
yeah,
but TV, both of these dudes could get rerouted, right?
for
There's a
sure.
real reality
100%.
there's a real reality. When you look at a player like Dylan Brooks, we have to look at Dylan Brooks in the same light as, maybe not bar for bar, but in the same like ilk as what Cam Johnson was discussed about over the last,
Yeah.
2 seasons, right? As a real trade chip. With the
Yeah.
fact that Dylan Brooks had a career year shooting from beyond the arc. He was a big part of why Houston was a top 5 defense
Yeah.
last year. Huge part of that. A even bigger, more instilled version of what their identity was last year, in a way that Cam Johnson necessarily has not formulated with the Brooklyn Nets. We know that Jalen Green, he has 2 years left on his contract, and his overlap with Devin Booker and Bradley Beal has high probability behind it that says he's going to get moved somewhere else. TV, that could be the Bulls, that could be Brooklyn, that could be
That's what I'm saying.
Utah.
And it's only 2 years, so that's a good, like, it's a decent, like, risk you're willing to take because it's not even a long-term deal.
Bro,
Like, it's... Yeah.
there's a reality where the Phoenix Suns could completely retool this thing over the course of the next 3 to 4 days, just that early, like that, and completely reposition themselves either behind Devin Booker or shoot. TV, I'm going to be honest with you. I think there's also a reality where if they come out and they say after this trade and they make the 10th overall pick, right, as well, there's a reality where maybe this is the first domino to fall where you say, you know what? We're starting with a younger shooting guard. We're going to start over, start from scratch. Hey, I'm going to call Houston back up, or I'm going to call Brooklyn up and see what the Devin Booker price looks like. And we go even deeper.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We go even deeper into the retooling. Or I guess it would be a rebuild at that point if you're getting rid of Devin Booker. And obviously, yes, you keep Bradley Beal around because, let's be honest, bro. That's like, let's be real.
Can't really
There's
trade
no
him,
way
right?
in the real.
Yeah.
There's no way they're going to be able to trade Bradley Beal. So do you survive with him over the next 2 seasons? Yes, but why does that unironically work? I think Dylan Brooks is signed for 1 more year past what Bradley Beal's extension is set for, because I think it's a player option for that second year. That's why they can't just buy him out, because it's 2 whole years of basically putting him at, like, they would have to buy him out for over $100 million to not play for their team, right? But Bradley Beal's contract would end right when the next re-up for Jalen Green would be, which would be a perfect alignment to re-sign Jalen Green, see that money for Bradley Beal fall off your books, and then you have all this cap space to move forward to retool yourself around Jalen Green as the primary option. Now, that's a big what if. Like you said at the beginning, the real chances of him being on this team long term, probably unlikely. I think Dylan Brooks sticks around because he's very much Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson area. And that fits well with Devin Booker. We've already seen that. And that probably fits well next to Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. Devin Booker is probably the point guard now coming in to this year. If they move off of Jalen Green, I assume you're going after a point guard. TV, I'm going to flip this over to you in the form of a question, and then you could go even deeper.
Yeah.
Do they take Jalen Green, flip him in a package to try to go after a wing player and a team option picked up D'Angelo Russell over at Brooklyn, and try to put the 2 homies together?
Oh, bro, this is what I'm saying. Like, I'm thinking, like, firstly, that is a good deal. We're gonna go into the mock draft pretty shortly because, like, there's so many things they could do because they don't really have, like, a set roster yet. So you can go to, like, so many different directions on, like, where they can go in the draft. But that honestly is not the worst idea, because what I see, like, especially with this, like, with the Jalen Green acquisition, firstly, I think the Suns did a damn good job trying to get as much as they could out of this whole KD situation. Young player, 10th overall pick, 5 second-round picks. Jay, I think that Jalen Green and 5 second-round picks potentially can consolidate down to 2 or 3 role players, which is exactly what Phoenix needs at the moment. Because, like, they shouldn't be swinging. I mean, it's not out of the question for Phoenix. Like, they haven't made a draft pick in so long. Like, they always end up trading their picks. So trading a 10th overall pick, it's not completely off the table. Let's be completely honest. Knowing Phoenix, it's not completely off the table. But I will say that I think they're gonna make a selection here. But Jalen Green, and this is, like, where I find it interesting. Jalen Green, those 5 second-round picks. Jay, go to different teams in the league, especially the bottom feeders who want to take a chance on, like, a former 2nd overall pick, someone who could show that he's a 20-point per game scorer, and see if you can take 2 or 3 of the role players. This is where consolidation, like, works in a sense for Phoenix Suns, which, if anything, like, they're the ones who are consolidating to many teams in the past. right? They're the ones who are giving away their role players in exchange for the big star player. There's their chance to do that with a Jalen Green and a few second-round picks. I think that this is a great trade for them. And more than anything, I'm just glad that the Houston Rockets are taking a chance, bro. They're taking a chance. They saw like how good this team did this season. They saw the struggles that they had, especially in the offensive end near the end of these games. And look, you don't get much better than Kevin Durant in NBA history, let alone in NBA today. He's still a top 10 player probably in the league in terms of talent. You add him to this defensive-minded system, and you know that he's going to be able to fit right in. He's the ultimate mismatch for so many NBA teams, and I think he's going to fit right into that Houston Rockets system. They have their go-to scorer now, Jay. As much as I think like the Phoenix Suns got as much as they could for Kevin Durant, especially the situation they were put in, I think the Houston Rockets got a damn good player and a damn good package to add to that team, especially with a group of those young guys. I love this fit for Kevin Durant.
So TV, this is the thing. The fit with Kevin Durant, I think, is like a glove, right? This is damn near the equivalent to right when he went to Golden State, right? And he comes in, you play the three. All you're doing is replacing what Harrison Barnes was for that team, right? As a knockdown shooter, another person who can self-create for them. For,
basically, this was the thing for Dylan Brooks, basically, right? Yeah.
And it's pretty much a 1-for-1 swap with the ability. If you really look at it, it's funny. It isn't a 1-for-1 swap. The reason why it is a 1-for-1 swap is because obviously he's going to slot right there into the starting three position, and it's going to be golden, right? The reason why it's actually almost more impressive than that is because he gives you, maybe not to the exact level of Dylan Brooks, but he does give you high-level defense for his age more specifically than anything, especially because he's going to have Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith Jr., right? Those guys around him as well to help, which makes it even easier for him to be able to guard at a high level because he's not going to have to be super high effort in terms of being defensive, right?
He could just be the help. He could be the help defense guy. Like
he could be a help defense guy. But here's the thing, TV, that's so crazy. He basically is what Dylan Brooks mixed with Jalen Green would be. So you're getting a 2 for the price of 1 in a trade that fits one positional spot on a team that last year almost had too much depth for their own good, right?
Yes.
So now the question you have to ask yourself, and this is going to be an interesting one because they still have an insane amount of depth. Let's be real.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, what do you think the Houston Rockets starting lineup as currently constructed, because there might be more moves in the margins, you never know.
Yeah.
But as currently constructed, what do you think the starting lineup for the Houston Rockets should be?
I think it's honestly like, for me, I don't know. For me, it's pretty straightforward at the moment, just because you have Van Vliet. I think they're going to pick up the team option because it's only a 1-year deal. You're going to see how you make this work with Van Vliet.
Okay.
Amen. You got KD,
at the 2,
Bari, and Şengün. That has to be the starting 5, I think, to like going into next season.
Yeah. We're on the same page. I was a little bit questionable about Bari versus Tari Eason, just because the Tari Eason Amen Thompson thing has really created itself into like something really dangerous defensively.
I think he could be like a better spot up guy. I think compared to
now, the other really interesting question is going to be where things go moving forward for a player like Alperen Şengün. TV, we talked about this a lot on the pod throughout the season, that this team just functioned completely different offensively when Alperen Şengün was the guy they were playing through. He's a good decision maker, high-level passer out of the post, high-level passer from at the top within 14 feet as top of the key creator. He's a person who creates a lot of real opportunities around him. We know Kevin Durant is not necessarily a ball mover, right? He's not a guy who necessarily creates assists in terms of his own personal playmaking. He kind of creates out of his spacing more than his ability to move the ball around, right? So the question is going to be, can he assimilate in a way that does not knock Alperen Şengün's productivity down a peg? I think there's a reality where he can, but I will say, let's be real, this is something we have to acknowledge. KD has never played next to a high level, not high level. That's maybe a little disrespectful to some of the guys within their roles.
Yeah.
He's never played next to a high usage center in his entire career.
Yes, that is true. That's
going to be interesting. Go through every single stop, there's not a single place that you can point out that says this guy has had over 20-25% usage as an offensive creator. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think I'm confident in it just because Ime Udoka has like done such a good job of firstly, Steven Adams and Kevin Durant being reunited. That's already a good starting point where you have Steven Adams and Kevin Durant knowing how to play together. So that's already a good start. 2, Şengün has done such a good job. And I think now that you have more guys willing to move off ball, right? Jalen Green is
Mhm.
most like good when he's like in his dribble package, trying to get to his spots, being able to operate that way. KD can do that too, but he's learned in many systems, especially in his most successful times, that he needs to play off ball in order to be for the team to be at his best. And I think he's gonna work well with Alperen Şengün. I think he's gonna be able to do well as a cutter. And at his age, at age 37 years old, I don't think he wants to be the focal point of an offense. So I think this actually is more of a great fit for Houston as well. More than anything, I think that like especially when you look at that Golden State Warriors series where the offense just like stalled out for so many periods of time, that's not gonna happen with KD anymore. And I think that's
Yeah.
like the biggest thing like with this trade. And I think this can only benefit Şengün. Overall, I think this is going to be more of a benefit to Alperen Şengün. And now that there's like more focus potentially going to be on KD because like you just can't leave him open, I think that's going to give even more scoring opportunities for Şengün as well. I think that's going to be a surprisingly really good duo going into next season.
I think the most impactful thing too, right, is I saw
Yeah.
something that popped up as a little bit of news earlier that said that the the odds around the Houston Rockets going into next season shot up to plus 850 after being 18-1. That is
Ooh.
insane, TV. That is
I mean, like,
insane.
if you add like a top two defense in the league with all of these like young guys who are just going to get better, and then you add a freaking one of the best scorers of all time, even still to this day at age 37, one of the best scorers in the league in Kevin Durant. You can't help but love at least the idea of this team going into that next season.
Yeah, I think that's going to be such an intriguing thing to look at them now because when you put them in the pecking order of all these other teams, for them to be that high in consideration as a potential, like not just playoff team, but as like a championship level team coming out of the West, TV, this might be one of the like I know what the Detroit Pistons did last year, coming from basically worst to like one of the most surprising teams in the NBA. And Houston obviously did something very similar, right? But TV, would this arguably be one of the most outstanding 2 to 3 year turnarounds in NBA history? If the Houston Rockets went from 2 seasons ago being one of the worst teams in the NBA, looking like one of the
Yeah,
most incompetent franchises out beside
yeah,
right with Tillman Fertitta running the franchise, everything
yeah,
seeming so out of pocket post James Harden, to then being a second seed in the Western Conference, where everybody says it's literally it's a gladiator sport just existing in the Western Conference, right? To then being a team that a lot of people are projecting to being not only a team that like is a top team in the Western Conference, but a team that might legitimately come out of the West and win the entire chip. That might be one of the biggest, most outstanding turnarounds in a 2 to 3 year time frame we've seen. And unironically, they have a blueprint because if I'm not mistaken, it took a little bit longer to percolate. But the Oklahoma City Thunder are walking proof right now
that's
of how
exactly what I was gonna
possible
say.
that
Like they
is.
didn't have to gut anything. I was gonna say like they didn't even have to
Yes.
gut their team. They still have like a lot of their young assets. They still have like a lot of the guys. Even if this Kevin Durant doesn't even work out, they still have a backup plan. So it's man, I just think like, how they've handled it, especially the last couple of years, bringing in Ime Udoka, bringing in the veterans. Jay, it just takes one or two moves for each of these teams to go like right into playoff contention, title contention, and I think the Houston Rockets did that. They are going to be a
Yeah.
team to 100% watch going into next season. I'm so excited for this team.
Man, this is gonna be a
Super excited, man.
crazy year, dude. I can't wait to go into this a little bit
It's
more
going to
depth
be.
once we're not so like riled up
Yeah,
by the fact that
exactly.
this all just happened so quickly, because I really want to sit down and look at this a little bit deeper, because I know that Kevin
Yeah.
Durant's fit is going to be like elite level. I feel really strong about the fact that the Houston Rockets
Yes.
are going to be a dangerous team next year. And
Yeah.
the fact that this team what they did defensively, and the only person you can say that was a high level contributor to that in particularly was Dylan Brooks, was the only thing that truly had to be given up, means that the ability for them to still be at least a top five, let's say even top seven, just to give them some wiggle room, right? Because
I think
it's hard to
they'll be out of the
duplicate.
play-in. Yeah, they'll be out of the play-in for sure. Yeah. So I think yeah,
Yeah,
that's gonna be a great trade. We're gonna talk about more this tomorrow, but man, Jay, this is like
yeah.
crazy news right before the pod. Let us know what you guys think down below. Who wins in this trade? I think both teams got a bit of what they wanted. What's gonna be interesting to see what the Phoenix Suns do, especially on draft night. That's another team to watch. Like what could possibly happen. We want to hear your thoughts down below. Jay, let's move on from this topic that we didn't think we are gonna get into
Whoa.
today to finally what we plan to do. which was the NBA mock draft. We've done this for what? I think it's like the third straight year at this point.
This will be the
where
third
we
season, yes.
third season in a row. NBA lottery mock draft. We're going to go through the top 14 picks. Me and Jay are going to go back and forth, being the GMs of this team, and say, you know what? Who do we want to draft at our pick? Again, and again, this trade with the Kevin Durant has now included Phoenix in the mix. So now we're gonna have to move some things around and see what type of move that they potentially want to go into this draft. So definitely very, very interesting. Jay, how do you feel about going into this mock draft?
I'm not gonna lie, I feel very confident. Obviously, some of the news over the last couple of days has made things a little wonky. The Ace Bailey stuff has been a big driver of kind of throwing big boards and mock drafts out of sync because what felt like an automatic to the 76ers and wouldn't go any further down than maybe like Charlotte now feels like, hey man, I don't know. Ace was a consensus guy going back and forth with Cooper Flagg for number one when the year started, and his draft stock has only decreased over the course of the season, whether it was Dylan Harper, his own teammate, usurping him, and now with all this other news going on as far as him wanting to be a number one guy, the interview stuff not going well, news that says that he actually might have canceled his interaction with the his interaction in training with the Charlotte Hornets because he doesn't want to play next to LaMelo Ball. Like, there's so many crazy things implemented with the Ace Bailey news that's going to make things even more interesting. But I'm not gonna lie, outside of Ace Bailey and obviously the Phoenix Suns being in the top 10 now, I feel pretty confident about the rest. I'm not gonna lie. I feel pretty confident about the rest.
I'm pretty confident too. Jay, the way we're gonna do it, because I was looking at the draft board as well, and I wanted us to always have a chance to draft for our team. So Jay, I got the odd picks, you got the even picks, so you have a chance to draft for your Bulls. I got a chance to draft for my Raptors. That's the way we're gonna do it. Of course, we're gonna go back and forth, which means Jay, let's go into this NBA mock draft, and I get the first overall pick. Yeah. And Jay, when we did this with Marcus for the WNBA draft, we knew who the first overall pick was, and we're not going to go much further into this.
Yeah,
I think Jay, I don't know if you saw this on Instagram, but I think the Mavericks accidentally updated their website like too early, and they already said "Welcome Cooper Flagg" on their website.
Oh, it's getting grimy. Oh, brother.
So I'm just gonna say we're just gonna go through this right now. Cooper Flagg's the number one overall pick. There shouldn't be any discussion around it.
Yeah,
two-way player, a lead on both ends. Yeah. And this is why we think this is a freaking like it was rigged that the Mavs got it, because he fits perfectly on this team.
Oh my gosh.
Like in terms of having Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving hopefully coming back in January or February.
Yeah.
Then you have Cooper Flagg, who doesn't need the ball to be a lead, who is going to be already like in all defensive like conversations in the next like 1 to 2 years. It hasn't been like in terms of being like a solidified number one overall pick, being like having potential to be a top 10 player in the league. It doesn't get much better than Cooper Flagg. This guy's getting comparisons to like Kawhi Leonard, some of the best players in the league. He's the number one overall pick. You can play him at the 3 or the 4. No question here for the Dallas Mavericks. He's my number one guy.
Yeah, Cooper's practically a layup. I mean, obviously for all the reasons that you stated, not just because of what he fits for the Dallas Mavericks, but whoever was going to be at number one was going to pull the trigger on this guy, right? Just everything that he brings to the table. The fact that he's already shown the ability to play against high-level players, obviously in the the U.S. select team stuff. And not to say that that speaks for all, but that's a further representation that not only does he have the respect of the league from a scouting perspective, but there's already people in this league that see Cooper as a guy who can be dangerous at the next level. So for the Dallas Mavericks to land in this position, evenly fit in that type of level where he can come in and Kyrie Irving be on this team, Klay Thompson still be on this team, Anthony Davis still be on this team, right? You get a little bit of point guard play to hold things down. And TV, there's rumors that say that there's a real chance that if Chris Paul doesn't go to one of the LA teams, he might end up being the point guard that fills in the time for Kyrie Irving at that spot for the Dallas Mavericks. That is a perfect player to get not only lobs from, but operating pick and roll axes for to just get you a quick, easy 10 points. And we've seen it before with Chris Paul. When he plays next to one of those high effort, high energy players, they can walk into 10, 12 points. We saw with DeAndre Jordan, right? Yes. High energy, high effort, and high athleticism. And he practically walked into being a near double-double machine. And practically, let's be honest, Chris Paul practically gave DeAndre Jordan an all-star game or two, right?
And Cooper he was All-NBA first team with Chris Paul, bro.
I'm saying Cooper Flagg has the ability to be that kind of guy at 6'9", because he's just so high effort, high IQ. That's a dude next to a guy like Chris Paul, next to the Kyrie Irvings of the world, in a defense anchored by Anthony Davis. They still have Derek Lively, for Christ's sake. This team, I'm going to say right now, every team in Dallas every team in Texas has one thing in common. Ain't nobody getting to the rim sweet. This defense around the basket is about to be
I
ridiculous.
was gonna
Anthony
say,
Davis, Victor Wembanyama, and then you
and then you
have
got
Jabari Smith / Tari Eason helping cover the rim on things for the
in
Houston
Houston.
Rockets. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you right
Yo, you're
now,
not
if you
getting
have
into
a road
pain.
trip in Texas, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough swimming, bro.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's probably one of the easiest picks. Just like we saw with Paige Beckers when it came to the WNBA, it wasn't going to get
Yeah.
as much. It wasn't going to get much easier than that. Jay, over to you. The San Antonio Spurs. Speaking of Texas, have the number 2 overall pick. This could be just as much big of a layup. But who are you going to pick with the number 2?
Yeah, man. I mean, this is just like you said, it's just as much of a layup. Dylan Harper is the pick. He's the guy that fits in easily. It's going to be a really interesting question when you look at the idea that De'Aaron Fox is going to be up for contract very, very soon. Obviously, Stephon Castle just won Rookie of the Year. You add Dylan Harper to that mix. I think he's a guy who still needs to learn. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a dude that they would want in the early stages to maybe be coming off the bench. Obviously, they're going to have to fill a real role with losing Chris Paul because the reality is Chris Paul might walk from San Antonio. And there's a high probability that he's going to leave San Antonio to go to one of these teams that seems like they're closer to contention in Dallas, in a LA Clippers, in a LA Lakers, right? So with that being the case, that is going to be a position that can easily be filled. But what Dylan Harper is able to do, he works well off the ball, he works well on ball. Is he a dude that can maybe fit next to Stephon Castle in that backcourt? That's a perfect opportunity for himself to grow in second unit situations too. Because the real thing has never been an issue about the Victor Wembanyama led starting 5. The issue has always been that when that bench comes in, they just don't know how to go get a bucket because you have Jeremy Sohan, right? You have Keldon Johnson, who's been okay, but the last 2 years have been a little wonky, right?
Yeah,
And you don't really have any real offensive shot creation. Now you have Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle. You still have De'Aaron Fox. You have Victor. You have the position that you're in where, let's not forget, they still have the 14th overall pick to help fill this depth out as
yeah,
well. This team can get
yeah.
lethal quick. And
I was gonna
TV,
say, yeah,
the elephant in the room still stands. We can say whatever we want about how solidified that guard position is, but if this Giannis stuff starts to fold over, who knows? Dylan Harper might mess around and either end up starting in San Antonio, or he might be the starting guard of the Milwaukee Bucks. Who knows? But you
who
want to
knows?
take the highest upside guy, so you put yourself in a position where if you do end up getting that phone call from Milwaukee, you got the player they wanted, not the player you wanted, just in case.
Just in case.
Just in case.
100% easy second overall pick. And I just love the fact that he could just like fit into the system in a way where he doesn't have to be on ball. I mean, like there's already like kind of a bit of question in terms of like his like being able to be like a true point guard per se, but his ability, he has good size at 6'6". Like he could play the starting 2 guard. He could potentially play 3 at some points in the game. Who knows? But at the end of the day, Jay, when I think of this like fit with him in the San Antonio Spurs, you know what's reminding me of? When James Harden was drafted to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and he started that early part of his career off the bench, won 6th Man of the Year. I can see kind of that sort of mold for Dylan Harper, who's going to be able to run the second unit, and you have him just like, I mean, if the talent shows like and like translates to the NBA, this guy's going to be freaking dominating and like potentially like ending games for the San Antonio Spurs, and like how well he starts in his rookie season. His ability to get to the paint, his ability to finish inside. The 3-point shot, a little bit of a question mark still, but I think under NBA shooting coach and all that, he's gonna be able to develop that. I just think he's one of the for sure prospects. And when you want to have a modern guard in the NBA, and in terms of him being ready, him being able to lead a team and playing and having the size to play both guard positions gives good flexibility for the San Antonio Spurs. And I think he's just a perfect fit over there. He's clearly the number 2 guy that they didn't want to get. Jay, you ready to move on to the next pick?
Yeah, boss. Man.
Okay, I got.
I know you got 3. I know you got 3, and I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, dude, what does he do?
Oh, Philadelphia 76ers.
TV?
Don't worry. Like when I was thinking about this is where it gets interesting. This is like we said like in the WNBA draft that it starts at number 2. Here it starts at number 3 because this is where I was like. Ace Bailey at the time when I was thinking when the Philadelphia 76ers got there, like, man, Ace Bailey can fit in there. He's gonna be able to fill in that wing position that they needed. It's perfect. Yeah. But with all this stuff coming out, like, do you, especially with the amount of drama Philly had to deal with last season, do you want to draft someone who doesn't want to be there for you in the first place? Someone who might cause rifts in the locker room, even though the talent is there with Ace Bailey? I say no, Jay. And I'm going to say that the Philadelphia 76ers draft VJ Edgecombe. I think they end up drafting VJ Edgecombe here with the 3rd overall pick. I feel like
Okay.
he's someone like with the amount of guards that they have on that team, the fact that they still have Joel Embiid, the fact that they still have Paul George here. I think that VJ Edgecombe can fit right in as being one of the best pure athletes in this NBA draft. He's someone who's starting to develop a little bit of a 3-point jump shot. He's can be able to create for himself and for others, especially seeing it like how he did in the tournament for Baylor. I've seen comparisons potentially to Russell Westbrook with the way he's able to um the way that he's able to um just like attack the rim with force. He's a good free throw shooter. I think as someone with like so many like mouths to feed over there in the Philadelphia 76ers, and someone who could still excel in that role playing off of all of them, VJ Edgecombe is a guy to fit over there, not just as a current fit, but if he turns into that star player that some like teams project that he could be there past the Joel Embiid era, past the Paul George contract, and I think he could still be a good like backcourt mate or a potential 3 guy next to someone like a Tyrese Maxey. I think VJ Edgecombe is the logical pick here, and maybe you don't have that high risk potential with Ace Bailey, but VJ Edgecombe seems more of a sure thing here.
Yeah, VJ is one of those players that's been discussed as one of those, like, not necessarily blue chip prospects, but like right there in terms of the
Right.
tier with Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper as like the guy that when they come in, they're going to be NBA ready out the gate, right? VJ's a
Exactly.
hyper
Yeah.
athlete. He's a guy who can get above the rim at a high clip. He's going to be somebody that when you throw lobs, when you talk about finishing around the rim at a high level, he can do all of those things.
He's
He's going to play
explosive, bro.
defense, super explosive as a defender, and definitely explosive as an offensive threat. This is a dude who, guys, like, Obi Toppin level springs at a much, much shorter position. Obviously, I think the thing for him is going to be the defensive contributions, right? The fact that he's so physical, the fact that he can use that athleticism to move around, switch multiple positions. This is a guy who we've seen be able to guard 1 through 3 in a lot of different operations just because of
Right.
the fact that he's just so physical. And that's big because you look at their front court, you look at their back court, they ain't screaming defenders right now, right? When you look at
Exactly.
Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain, they're gonna need that off-ball guy that can cover up in that situation, right? We've seen that with Drew Holiday, right? We've seen that in that situation with Drew Holiday as a secondary guard next to a handful of guys in different operations. We're seeing that right now. When we saw the Orlando Magic trade for Desmond Maine, a lot of the other guys that come up in the conversations around the Orlando Magic trading for a point guard, Kobe White, right? Anthony Simons, Jordan Poole, Darius Garland, LaMelo Ball. Guess what? All of them were going to add to the potential defensive struggles of this team in one way, shape, or another. You know what Desmond Bain brings to the table that those don't? That he can still be an above average defender. That's what separated them. So now you
Yeah.
have a backcourt that can both shoot 40% from 3 and they can both guard. In this situation,
Exactly.
you're by getting VJ Edgecombe, although he's not the level of defender that this guy is yet, and he's not necessarily the level of savvy this dude is an offensive player just yet, but you're getting VJ Edgecombe to be essentially your Jalen Suggs. You're getting him to be your Drew Holiday, where you can be okay with having an offensive centered point guard, knowing right?
Yeah.
Knowing that you're still going to have a defensive infrastructure in that backcourt because you're going to have somebody that you can put your best perimeter, put on the opponent's best perimeter scorer, right? So that's going to be huge. VJ is going to be a guy that I think does play out the gate. I think he does get real time, and I think the realest question is going to be, TV, I'm not going to lie to you. I really think the big question is going to be how long does it take for him to crack like the starting rotation? Like,
I don't think long. The thing is, like, I think
I
again,
really wonder.
I really do think so too. Again, he is definitely wrong, especially for like I want to say he's definitely one of those NBA ready players, but for a situation like the Philadelphia 76ers where you want to bounce back from such a horrendous year last year that you want to like get back into that playoff mix, like are they going to be like, especially if they resign Quinn Grimes, right? Like, do you think like Quinn Grimes might be able to get the starting spot right away early this season for how well he played to close out the last year? It's going to be definitely interesting. But I think like if you have like going to next season, you draft VJ Edgecombe, you bring back Quinn Grimes. If you're Philly, I think that's like a really good like successful like off season in terms of like dealing with your 2 position.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're in a really good spot. Philly, this is not necessarily what you sign up for when you go for the 3rd overall pick. And honestly, I'm not going to lie. If you're one of these teams on the draft board that's right below them or significantly below them, I'm talking about the Utah. I'm talking about even as far
Yeah.
as if you are maybe I'm not gonna lie. I mean, as much as I would love for the Bulls to move up and maybe go after somebody like Ace and take a swing, I still feel like maybe even if you're like New Orleans, I don't know, but I feel like you look at that third spot and you have to see it as barbecue chicken. That has to be one of them things that if you're one of those positions below, with the fact that the Ace Bailey news has shook up things so much, all these other teams have a real possibility of being able to go after him if they think that's the guy. They should take that third spot as a real eligible opportunity to lock in that dude if they think that that's going to be the guy that fits their squad.
100%, man. And it's going to continue to get interesting because, yeah, we're going to move over to the 4th overall pick.
Yeah.
That's back to you, the
Yeah.
Hornets. Now, do you already know what the LaMelo Ball situation, Brandon Miller coming back from injury? Who do you have them taking here with the 4th overall pick?
Yeah, man. So don't get me wrong. Ace Bailey was kind of a glove fit, at least in my original thoughts before everything else started getting real wonky. But you know who fits a little bit better? Colin Knuppel of Duke as well, man. He's a guy that I think it fits really well.
Okay.
Colin Knuppel, when I started doing some real draft prospect stuff on him, the names that came up, and I hate to do the white guy thing because I don't want to do that entirely.
Yeah.
So I came up with a handful of guys that don't just fit your typical white guy ball handler archetype, right? But there's a few of them, but there's a handful of guys that I feel like operate outside of that. The first name I'll give that's not in the white guy archetype is actually what the Oklahoma version of Buddy Hield was coming into that draft class, right? Built like Clay, shoot like Steph type. Now, Colin Knuppel's not as high level of a shooter as Buddy Hield even was, or nearly what Buddy Hield has developed into, right? But it's the on-ball ability to shot create, the moving around. I think defensively, he's a high-effort guy, just always knows where to be. The other names that come up, I think that on a high-level tier, he can be an Austin Reeves caliber guy. I think somewhere in the middle of all of that is the two names I like the most. And TV, give me your thoughts on these. The two names I came up with are Bojan Bogdanovic, right, as one of them. Yeah. And the other guy that fits is more like a more, not necessarily athletic, but a more mobile version of what, oh my goodness, Joe Ingles was for Utah.
Yes.
Those are kind of all, that's kind of the pocket I have him in.
Yeah, no, I think this is great. I mean, this is like one of the best shooters in the draft in terms of us being an elite level 3-point shooter. 40% at Duke, even like from the field, 48%, near 50, 40, 90. And I just think that someone who has a great basketball IQ, and for someone like fitting in a team where they probably still want to have LaMelo Ball long term, and Brandon Miller being on the ball as well, being those like top two guys, Colin Knuppel could just move around and just like work his like off ball magic and really like and just like really like be like that just be like that guy that can like just work off ball with them. There's some obviously you can go with some other guys in the draft here because like when I was like they give the 4th overall pick too, I was thinking someone like a Trey Johnson. I don't think that Ace Bailey fit would have been great, like whatsoever. Like wouldn't be like a fantastic fit, especially next to someone like a Brandon Miller. But Colin Knuppel, man, very good player in term and has a good assist to turnover ratio. He's someone who's like very smart with the basketball, and you could see that like with this Duke team and the way that he was able to play off of someone like a Cooper Flag and be kind of the second scoring option. He is like again one of the better like 3-point shooters. He's been able to like translate that into the NBA right away. His ball handling isn't even horrible for someone like that. So I know you don't want to make like those like white guy comparisons, and he's fit like some of those guys that you mentioned. Honestly, I could see him being like a poor man's version of like who do I like Chris Mullin. If you guys remember from back in the day, Chris Mullin is like someone from like from that Warriors team back in the day, would run TMC. I think that he could potentially get to that point where he could be a good shot creator for himself, be able to play off people like a Tim Hardaway Jr. and a Mitch Richmond. I think that Colin Knuppel can be like a poor man's version of that. I could even see him maybe not being in the defensive level, but being able to move off screens and be effective in that way like a Klay Thompson. So I think Colin Knuppel, especially with already like two ball dominant guys over there in Charlotte with LaMelo and Brandon Miller, I think he fits right in.
I think TV, another thing that should be really acknowledged, and I think it's been kind of spoken for through the first 4 picks that we've made, there's a lot more talent in terms of early level contributors than I think a lot of people are giving it credit for, right? I think
Oh,
obviously
going
Cooper
straight into the
Flag
league, like
and
straight in, right? Yeah.
yeah, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. Cooper Flag and Dylan Harper are going to be instant contributors just out of the mere fact that their talent supersedes, right? But some of
Yeah.
these names are going to get lost in the fray. And we're going to bring up a handful of them, obviously, in this top 14. And also, we have a group of our own personal guys in this draft that we're going to be big fans of watching, not only them in the league in terms of if they end up on our team, but of course, even if they go somewhere else, we'll still be really intrigued to see what their development looks like, right? And Con Knuckle is one of those guys to me that I think is going to be to come in, move the ball at a high level. He's going to be a guy who can come in and shoot. He can defend at a relatively high level because he's a bigger build. I heard somebody say that at least from an offensive package standpoint, that he has a little bit of Luka Doncic in his game. Now, don't get me wrong. That's hyperbole to a certain level.
Yeah.
But if you watch his actual movement on ball, he is somebody who uses his body to create space. He's somebody who does use the fact that he's a little bit more burly on the defensive end to help cover more ground, right? He does these things in a way that screams high-level contributor out the gate because he just knows where to be, how to move, and how to operate within an offense and as a help defender as well in a way that's going to click day one. And that's going to be so important in a draft class like this where outside of the top two, everybody feels like they're a question mark. Guys like VJ, guys like Con, another guy that probably will come up in a little bit soon is Trey Johnson out of Texas. There's a handful of these dudes that are just like when you plug them into a team, you know what they do, you know what they're great at, you know where they're going to contribute instantaneously, and you also know that that's a player that's going to get at least 15 minutes a game and is going to do something special with it. This
100%.
class is a lot more loaded with those type of guys than people are giving it credit because Cooper and Dylan are taking all the headlines.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of guys here which could be like, which can help you right away. And if the cards fall right, they could be like multiple time all-star type players, man. This is a pretty deep grab class for that, and you can have a lot of good high upside guys. Con Knuckle being one of those guys, if given the right opportunity. Again, he fits right there with the Charlotte Hornets. I really do like that pick there. Next up, the 5th overall pick, I have the Utah Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I was potentially going to go with Ace Bailey in this position because I thought you're going to go with Trey Johnson with the Charlotte Hornets. I was potentially doing that. Now that Trey Johnson's on the board, I actually like Trey Johnson as a better fit in Utah than I do with Ace Bailey. So I'm going to go with Trey Johnson here with the 5th overall pick. This is someone great size that's 6'6". He definitely needs to fill out his body. He's only like weighing at 190 pounds. But at 19 years of age, this man was putting up damn good numbers at Texas Tech as a freshman. 90 points a game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Almost 40% from the 3, 87% at the line. This guy's a bucket getter. This guy could shoot on all 3 levels. He's one of the like higher end offensive players, like shot creators in this league. And the thing is, he's not like, one of those like, high end shot creators who's a bit smaller in size who, we see a lot of these guys like in the past in these drafts, Jay, where it's like an undersized guard, really good at getting his own shot, but can he really be a 2 guard in this league? This guy has a size to be a 2 guard. He has a 7-foot wingspan. I think he can really fill out into a good all-around NBA player with the basis of the fact that this guy could just go out and get buckets, which the Utah Jazz desperately need. They got some good draft picks last year with Isaiah Collier. They still don't know what's happening with Cody Williams. We don't know where his fit is with the future. It did not look good. I will not say it did not look good.
Yeah.
But with the way that they're trying to get rid of like so many of these like players from the past era, when you talk about Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, they're going to need some shot creation. And it doesn't get much better than Trey Johnson, especially at that guard position, being able to go through all 3 levels. I'm just a huge fan of his game and the way that he's able to produce from the offensive end. And at such a young age, I loved like the way that Will Hardy is like developing his players over there in Utah. You have him next to someone like a Lauri Markkanen being that kind of like go-to guard on the offensive end. I think he fits right there with Utah. Again, I was thinking of going Ace Bailey here if you did go with Trey Johnson number 4, but I think Trey Johnson here would be an absolute, perfect fit there for Utah.
I'm not gonna lie, that would actually be a perfect fit. The Ace Bailey thing was kind of interesting because I do feel like you are in that position of wondering whether or not you might need to draft over Cody Williams, understanding the fact that like last year was just like uncharacteristically unproductive for a top level draft pick, right? Like it was pretty bad, bro. So that being the case, Ace Bailey does feel like one of those players, especially because Utah does seem like the type of team that could kind of let him rock, so to speak. But at the same time, you're just right. Trey Johnson, I just mentioned him in that list of guys that I feel like are going to be instantaneous contributors because of what they bring to the table.
Yeah.
Trey Johnson, not only drafting him gives you instant buckets, we have proof of concept. TV.
Yeah.
Enter Jordan Clarkson. Enter Colin Sexton. Enter Cam. Well, I mean, yeah. I guess you could make I guess you could say Cam Johnson was like kind of a
Yes.
bucket getter out the gate, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
He
yeah.
surely
He's more
became a
off ball,
20
more
point
off
per
ball,
game
more off
scorer
ball.
last
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he became much more of eh,
But
maybe
more the
that's not.
first two for sure. More the first two. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
more maybe more of the first two. I think I'm thinking of oh my gosh, I'm thinking of the other Brooklyn Cam. That's who it is.
Oh, Cam Thomas. He just signed
Yeah,
a
Cam Thomas.
contract.
That's
Yeah.
why. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my fault. But yeah, Cam Thomas out the gate. Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson. Those are like the archetypes you think of. Excuse me for Cam Thomas because I feel like
Yeah.
that was a layup name. But yes,
Yeah.
those are three guys that you give the microwave scorer tag to, and you just roll the ball out and say go get us a bucket, and he's gonna sleepwalk himself into at least 15 calm.
Yeah,
That's
but the thing is,
Trey.
but the thing is too, like, and it is like what I mentioned about the undersized, like those guys that you mentioned, they're undersized guards who have
There
to kind
you
of
go.
make up
Yep.
for it. He has the size to even be a good defender.
6'6".
He's a 6'6" guy and fill into an NBA body. Honestly feel like more than anything, I think he can ground himself into like a Chris Middleton type player. I really do think so.
Ooh, I
Eventually,
like that comp. I like that comp a lot.
eventually, I don't think he'll
Yeah.
be like that out the gate, but give him
Yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
time, give him some opportunity, and I think he could fill himself like. Chris Middleton was like an underrated defender on that like championship Bucks team back in the day. Like
Yeah.
and then like you saw like those mass performances, especially against the Boston Celtics, where you can
Yeah.
give the ball to him at the end of the games, and when Giannis isn't having it going, you can give it to him and he can like get you a bucket. I feel
Yeah.
like Trey Johnson already has that like bucket getting like skill off the bat. And once he like gets
Yeah.
into the NBA and understands NBA offenses and like plays on the defensive end, I think he can fill into himself potentially being in that Chris Middleton role, maybe even better because of that offensive potential. I think he fits right there with the Utah Jazz.
He could mess around and be like a high level Joe Johnson, but
I
like
like
with a
that
little
too.
bit
I
more
like that
defensive
too.
upside. Like that's a
Yes.
guy too that just like an ISO shot creator. He can be a dude who I think can come in, get buckets, create offense for you, and in a sense, it's gonna create real spacing for that team as well. The real key there is being 6'6". I'm so glad you pointed that out because that is the biggest difference between a Colin Sexton and a Cam Thomas in particular, right? Is that's what makes Trey Johnson so different is because he's 6'6", he has defensive upside as a guy who might be able to guard not just ones and twos, but maybe in small ball lineups even guard the three position. The positional versatility on the defensive end for Trey Johnson actually is what makes him even more of an upside pick because we know the offense is there. It's a given. The dude's gonna walk himself into 15 points next. I'm calling it right now. Trey Johnson is going to walk into averaging between 12 to 15 points a game next year. He's gonna walk into it by the end of the season.
On Utah, I think it's gonna be closer to 20. I honestly think it's gonna be closer to 20. He's gonna get that opportunity.
I feel you. And especially if they clear house with letting John Collins walk, if they really trade Lauri Markkanen this summer, it's gonna open up real opportunity for him to come out the gate swinging. I'm right there with you. This is a guy who I think is definitely gonna be in double figures by the end of the first 2 to 3 months, and it's a guy who I think is gonna end the year as like. I'm gonna go this far too, and maybe this is going a little crazy. I think Trey Johnson's gonna be the third guy in the hat of the conversation for Rookie of the Year. I think he's gonna be that third dude in the convo.
Yeah, I was gonna make a good take here too. I actually think he might be Rookie of the Year. He has a good chance. He might be a Rookie of the Year.
Jeez, y'all heard it here, man.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of his. I think he fits right there in Utah. I think it's gonna be a good place for him to develop. Again, Will Hardy, I think is gonna be a really good developmental coach. So he's gonna be over there with my 5th overall pick. Jay, was it your hometown team at this point? The Washington Wizards? You have the 6th overall pick with them. Jay, there's so many stuff they have to fill out here. Like you can go in so many directions. Who are you gonna go with here at the 6th overall pick?
TV, and this is why I'm so pissed, dog, because you were supposed to lay this up to me, dog. You were supposed to let Ace Bailey fall to you. You were supposed to take Ace Bailey at Utah at 5, and I take Trey Johnson at 6, and we walk away scot-free with the bucket getter so that we have an easier way to move off of Jordan Poole this summer, right?
Yeah.
But nah, instead, here's what we're going to do, man. We're going to be that team.
Are you taking the bait?
We're going to be that team, bro.
Yay,
Ace
let's
Bailey
go.
with the 6th overall pick, man. Ace Bailey, come on down, man.
Yeah.
At near 6'9", dude. the fit of having an offensive shot creator that can just hit tough buckets, create for himself, operate off the dribble, right?
Yeah.
It screams everything that we need, right? You have Bilal Coulibaly as a defender that also did take high steps last year as an offensive player in the beginning of the year before he got injured, right?
Yes.
You have Alex Sarr, who had a really strong season last year. We had Marcus on the podcast earlier this season when we were talking about what the Rookie of the Year race looked like. And he thought Alex Sarr was deserving of a real conversation around earning that position because of the fact that not only was he taking a lot of 3-pointers and showing that he has stretchability despite the fact that he was hitting like 32%. He was just showing that he has stretchability from the 3-4 spot. But then also we saw how high level of a defender at the center position Alex Sarr is, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you still have Bub, right? But
Yeah.
that 3 spot, after moving off of Denny Avdia, there's real questions around that 3
Yeah,
spot.
I mean Bilal,
Because Bilal might be the 3 in theory, but there's a world where Bilal might be the 2, right?
Yes.
There's a real world where Bilal might be the 2 as well. So you have yourself in an interesting situation right now where you look at it where you could say that Bub Carrington's the 1. You can maybe say Bilal's the 2. You bring in Ace Bailey, you put him at the 3. You have Alex Sarr. I still think he fits better as a 5 right now.
Long
so your
term.
biggest question, yes,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think long term, I think he's still much better at a 5 than a 4. The question would be that 4-man position, and that's where things get a little tricky for Washington, but I think they can fill that out. I think there's a world where they can fill that out. Or if they keep Jordan Poole, maybe you put Bilal at the 3, and maybe you just have Ace Bailey play a small ball 4 position out the gate, kind of like what Charlotte has done with Miles Bridges, right, in the past.
Right, exactly.
And do something similar to that, right? But that's a very strong lineup with a lot of length, a lot of versatility. And if Ace Bailey can just improve his awareness as a defender, he has all the tools to be a high-level defender. All the tools. This is all about IQ now. This is all about IQ defensively. And I think if you have a guy like Alex Sarr on the back end, if you have a wing defender like Bilal Coulibaly next to you, right? I think there's a real possibility that Ace Bailey can grow into at least a competent defender. And then you have Bub and Jordan, and then Ace as a shot creators on that team. Now you look really solid, at least in terms of your starting 5, and that's a good place to be in, man. So I'm gonna say we take the bait. Ace Bailey is the pick at 6.
Yeah, at this point, like if Ace Bailey's slipping down to 6, I feel like out of all teams watching, you need to take this chance for someone who you could potentially have as your long-term superstar guy there, and Ace Bailey, 6'9", just natural scorer, being able to be one of the best bucket getters like off the dribble. He just looks so smooth with his game. Again, the IQ is definitely it's going to be interesting with him, and the fact that I think we talked about this earlier on when we kind of mentioned the draft here and there throughout the podcast. He kind of is a bit of a vacuum, he kind of gets the ball and slows a lot of things down. And with this Washington Wizards team, especially when you have athletes like Bub Carrington and Alex Sarr, you want to have those guys running. When you have Bilal Coulibaly too, you want to have these guys running. But if he's able to fill out his body, be able to still be the number 1 guy, but also be able to kind of maximize the guys around him, I think that's going to be the biggest thing in Ace's development, is being able to be able to empower the other teammates around him. And I think he just has the perfect build. The defense is going to definitely be an issue, but he just reminds me, and especially with the way that if his shooting is kind of I could see him being just a better version of Michael Porter Jr. Remember when he was coming out of high school, MPJ was going to be that guy coming in? Obviously, the back problems really derailed his draft stock, but Ace just has that uncanny ability that even when a guy's in your face, he's just going to be able to hit it. He has and there's very few guys in the league that could do that, and I think that's super super important there. But I'm going to have Ace Bailey there. What's it called? But yeah, I think Ace Bailey's going to be a great pick there at number 6.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. If we get Ace, I feel like there's 2 players I'm really excited for. If they fall to 6, I would just be so excited. It really is Ace Bailey and Trey Johnson. I think Trey Johnson is probably a better fit for this team, if I'm just being honest. I think he's a better fit, just given the fact that I think he's a true 2 guard. And it goes back to what you made a statement about when you were talking about Bilal Coulibaly being your 3. right? The
Mhm.
4 position is still a little dicey, and I think that's going to be something that has to get addressed at a different time. Obviously, we also have the pick at 18. We're not going to be discussing that in this podcast, but
Yeah.
could you get a 4-man at 18? I think there's a real opportunity to get Asa Newell, Rasheer Fleming. You get Danny Wolf, right? Do you go after one of those guys later in the draft at the at that late spot at 18? There's a real chance to fill out that 4-man spot. But I think that if you can get an offensive creator, I don't think you double down on defense this high in the draft when there's not
Yeah.
too many guys that are high level shot creators in this draft class. We got a lot of high level shooters, a lot of high level defenders, some really good switchable guys, but there's a really small pocket of dudes that you say, give them the ball, they're going to go get a bucket and create offense for your team. We just drafted 2 of them back to back.
Yes, 100%. But yeah, great pick there with Ace Bailey going to the Washington Wizards. We're gonna move on to number 7th pick, Jay, and that's my turn over here. We got the New Orleans Pelicans.
Okay.
My initial pick, and when I was looking, like when I was trying to figure out like how this draft is gonna go, I was thinking that Concanoopel, if he was able to drop, would be a perfect fit there in New Orleans. But obviously, you drafted him to the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah.
Jay, I think the Pelicans take a swing here. This guy has such a wide range, but I think that he has a chance here, if he gets drafted here, to be kind of that point guard, like just like one of those unicorn type point guards in this league. And I think that this team could be able to power him because they have so many great off ball players.
Okay.
Jay, at the number 7th overall pick, I'm taking a chance here. We're going Edgar Demon. I'm going with Edgar
Whoa.
Demon.
Okay, you are much higher on Yeager Demon than a lot of people are right now.
Jay, when I'm
That's
looking at
cool. I like that.
yeah, no, I am a big fan of Edgar Demon. He'll come into this team. Obviously, they're gonna have Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Zion Williamson. All these guys work best when they're playing off ball and they're being fed by like a really good point guard. And
Yeah.
Jay, it doesn't get much better in terms of vision. It doesn't get much better in terms of being able for passing ability than Edgar Demon. He is the best playmaker in this class. And someone who's standing at 6'9", obviously not the most explosive guy. There's a lot of concerns with his ability to score for himself, being a spot-up guy. But if there's some team who's going to take a chance and make him run point guard full-time, I think it could be the Pelicans. Especially with, like, you have some wiggle room with DeJounte Murray being injured probably for a good chunk of the season, CJ McCollum being a unrestricted free agent after this season upcoming. I think this is a team where you can be like, okay, we can put the ball in Edgar Demon's hands, let him be a operator in the pick and roll, which he is so good at. Probably the best player in the draft in terms of operating as a point guard on the pick and roll. And because of his size, Jay, at 6'9", he can see over everyone. Probably most guards in the league. And he has, like, Jay, if you've seen his highlights, he has that zip in the pass that you get from like a 5 to 7 year vet. That's like someone who's like who has been there, like, in the league for a while. He's just so good at that specific skill, and I think that in this system, probably, hopefully, like in this like Pelican system, he can like find his place like offensively. Hopefully, that like now he's with NBA coaches, he's gonna be able to find like his spots and be able to like have his moments where he's able to like go off the ball. But in terms of a pure playmaker, point guard position here, give me Edgar Demon to go to the New Orleans Pelicans, and I think they're gonna take a chance here.
I like Yegor to them. I think the most interesting spot is just that he's just not a high level 3-point shooter. Obviously, you make up for that by having guys like you have guys like Trey, Herb Jones on lower attempts. Is still a high level 3-point shooter, right?
CJ McCollum, who works good off ball. Yeah,
he's a good off-ball player as well. I think the decision making for Yegor is going to be huge too. As a guy who can be a little turnover prone, right? That's going to be one of the biggest things. Is that with all the fancy passes comes a lot of weird decisions, right? So that's going to be important. But he's a guy who rebounds really well for his size and rebounds really well for his position, more particularly. He's a good help defender, as a dude who can become as like that secondary slide defender if you need somebody to kind of come in and poke here and there. He's a guy who I do think is going to be good at finishing around the basket. And more importantly, I think you can mess around and walk Zion Williamson into about 8 points a game just off of pick and roll lobs. I'm not going to lie, because this guy is just that high level of a passer.
Yes.
This gives a lot of Josh Giddey to me in a real way. And that's not as bad as it might seem to some people who are not as big Josh Giddey optimists. And don't get me wrong, I'm a Chicago Bulls fan. I had my ebbs and flows with him last season as well. But one thing we saw from Josh Giddey was that he was always going to be a high-level passer. He's a guy who
Yeah.
does make good decisions on and off the ball. And we saw once that 3 ball started to strike after the All-Star break, this was a guy who was single-handedly almost turning our entire draft lottery luck around
Yeah.
because he was trying to make it where we were going to be a playoff team because he was just playing that special, him and Kobe White in that backcourt.
Yes.
So that goes to tell you that this is a guy, and it's funny that you use unicorn as the statement because this is a guy that with a little bit more, share of the sugar in terms of taking care of the ball at a high level, you pair that with if this guy can become competent from beyond the arc. I'm talking just 35, 36%.
His
We're
jumper
talking
doesn't
league
look
average.
horrible. His
No,
jumper
not at
doesn't look
all.
bad. He doesn't
He is
look
a guy. He is definitely a guy that I think if he can get the league average 35, 36% on about 4 to 5 attempts per game at that point
bad.
guard position with the ability to pass the way he does and the ability to get to the rim the way he has the ability to do so. This is a dude who could be really special out the gate. You pair that with having the defensive capabilities of Zion Williamson when healthy. You do still have yourself in a good position next to a DeJounte Murray, right? There's
Yeah.
you like what Herb Jones, you like what Trey Murphy bring to the table defensively around this guy to help make up for his deficiencies on that side of the ball. Now it just comes down to taking care of the ball and shoot the 3 ball at a high clip yourself. Or not even a high clip, just a competent clip from beyond the arc. And you become a really special player out the gate. This is a guy who could take maybe year 1 doesn't show this flash. But do you remember what Lonzo Ball became when he got to New Orleans?
Yeah.
I feel like Yegor can be a lot of that, just not as high level of a defender as
The defending
Lonzo.
part is going to be
Yes.
But I think he'll be like a league average defender. I really do think he'll be like he has,
and that's still
he has the
fine.
length, and that's fine. Yeah, especially when you have freaking Herb Jones and Trey Murphy beside
Right,
you.
exactly.
So I think don't be one of and if you can really just hone in on that playmaking ability, which I think would be absolutely fantastic for the Pelicans, that's big time over there. So yeah, Edgar Demon, I think that's a great pick over there for the Pelicans. Jay, with the 8th overall pick, the Brooklyn Nets, again, a team that can go like with so many places here. Who do you got?
So the Brooklyn Nets are interesting because I'm sure they're pissed that things have kind of went the way they have because I'm sure Brooklyn would really have liked Ace to fall just given all the news around him right now.
Yes.
And they're the team that I think has the highest probability of actually trying to trade up to that 76ers spot, in my personal opinion. I think that's the team that wants to go after them the most, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. The player that I'm going to go with, man, I'm going to stick with the pick that I wrote down because it's just the pick that I still feel like fits the best. I'm going to go with Kasparas Yakushonis out of Illinois. I still feel like him being a combo guard for this team just really fits. Everything that they're trying to do gives off that they're going to need a guy that can just, make good decisions with the basketball. I like what he brings to the table as a scorer. He's a guy that does pass at a high level. I was checking his per 36 earlier. His per 36 is nearly 17 points a game, 5.3 assists, 6.4 rebounds. He shoots the free throw at a high enough clip that says that even though his 3-point percentage is a little nasty, it tells me that he has the capability of being a high-level shooter. I think Kasparas Yakushonis and Yegor are in the same conversation in terms of the archetype of player they are. Do I believe that Kasparas actually has a little bit of a higher upside, just given the fact that I think that he takes care of the ball a little bit better, and I think he's a lot more active on the offensive glass? Yes, I think where unicorn comes in when you talk about Yegor, it's just the dude's 6'9" with the ability to be able to do what he does at that level. If he can get a jumper, he's just going to be a completely different animal. And I think that's what separates the two, right? So I think that Yegor just fits in a really good way. I think Yegor also steps in and fills in for the fact that, let's be honest, there's probably a low probability that they bring back, talking about Brooklyn, brings back D'Angelo Russell. And if they do, the intention is probably to move him in some shape or form. So I like what Yegor brings to the table. It was between Yegor and Jeremiah Fears. I think that Yegor just fits more of the offensive punch that they desperately need.
Kasparas I think is a good one. Again, 6'6", great size, and he just has like a more developed jump shot compared to Yegor Demon. Obviously not as great of a passer, but when you're the when you're the Brooklyn Nets and you have so many holes in your team that you're trying to fill, I think like trying to go for like a nice 6'6" point guard who can potentially play the 2 guard as well. Someone who's played this young, who's played against grown men, by the way. He used to play for Barcelona before moving over to America. I think Kasparas is a great shout over here. There's the guard position is definitely something that they want to address in this draft. And there's a lot of different guys here. I think Kasparas is like one of those like guys where, you could definitely like take a chance. You could definitely go with him, and he could be your lead guard for like a long term.
Yeah, I like Casparis. He's not my favorite. He's not my favorite prospect in this draft by any means, but I think he fills a lot of spots. He's a guy who I think as a combo guard can give you positional versatility. And let's be honest, there's a reality where Cam Johnson, right, is still on this team all the way up until the trade deadline. I think it would be crazy to do so. I
There's a
think it would be
chance,
crazy
yeah,
to do
for
so
sure.
personally, but there's a real chance. And I think that you pair that with the fact that you still have a guy in Cam Thomas offensively. Casparis could definitely get him the ball in good spots. He could get Cam Johnson the ball in good spots. Nick Claxton is still on this team until further notice, right?
Yeah,
Like you just need a point guard who's really good at being the setup man.
for
And
sure.
between Yegor and Casparis, those are two of the better fits as like the facilitating point guard archetype in this draft class. Yegor's already off the board. Casparis is probably the next best guy to go into that spot.
That's a good pick over there. We got Kasparis Yakashonis going to the Brooklyn Nets. Jay, the 9th overall pick.
We've been
And
waiting for this, TV.
been waiting for this one. Jay, I'm gonna give you a bit of context for my pick here because
Okay.
there's a lot of changes happening in the Raptors organization. One of them being that Bell, who was like the owner, like part of MLSE, just sold most of their stock to Rogers, who's another telephone company over here in Canada. And
Okay.
what they've been doing to a lot of this, because like we have like this big ownership group called MLSE, they handle the Maple Leafs, they handle the Blue Jays, they handle the Raptors.
Okay.
One of the biggest things that they've been changing here is that all of these teams no longer have team presidents. They only have the general manager, and they've been getting a lot of the team getting out of a lot of the team presidents. This
Okay.
is Masai Ujiri's final year of his contract. There's a lot of fear around the Raptors organization that MLSE will not
Interesting.
bring back Masai Ujiri, and this is his final year as a member of the Toronto Raptors, which is crazy to think about.
Interesting.
But this is how Rogers has been operating. This is how
Okay.
they've been running things.
Hmm.
I think they're going to go for a swing here. I think the Raptors,
Okay.
I think Masai Ujiri realizes that this might be his last chance to really have full control of the team and like really like if you see him in his vision. I
Okay.
think they're going to take a chance. I know with the players on the board, there's one guy here that a lot of people are going to think, man, this guy just fits right here for the Toronto Raptors. This is the perfect place for Kaman Malawach.
Yeah.
Jay, I'm taking a swing here.
Okay.
And I'm going to take one of my boys from this draft, and I think this is like the perfect Masai Ujiri pick. The 9th overall pick, the Raptors take Noah Senge.
Okay, that wasn't the swing I was thinking of, but I like that swing nonetheless. That was not the guy I was
Noah
thinking of, but that is I like that pick though. I like that.
Noah Senge. I think even if it's funny how Malawach is like here, I was really hoping you would take him for the Brooklyn Nets and be like, okay, this makes things a lot easier for me to say. But people are gonna be like, man, why did you go with Kaman Malawach? He's like perfect. He's gonna fit right in the Raptor system.
Yeah.
I feel like in terms of like Jay, we see these players with like a low ceiling, low floor, high ceiling. This is the
Mm-hmm.
biggest swing player in the draft. This
Mm-hmm.
guy Noah Senge could be the biggest swing player in the draft. He can run super hard in the fast break. He's still growing even though he's 6'9" without shoes. He just has like that uncanny ability and that like IQ of being able to move off ball. He doesn't have his shooting definitely needs to come around, but he's definitely shown improvement even like a mid-season with the team overseas. And he's just
Mm-hmm.
someone like where, like I mentioned when they talked about him as one of like in a couple weeks ago. There's so many guys on the Toronto Raptors who want to have the ball in their hands. This guy could just do all the little things. He could slot right in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he not might be a starter right away, but he's one of those guys that if all of his skills, especially like given the Toronto Raptors developmental system, they've developed guys like Pascal Siakam who might be the Finals MVP after tonight. They've developed guys like Fred VanVleet,
Mm-hmm.
Norman Powell. No one think it could be one of those like next developmental projects. And if he could turn out to be like what the high ceiling thinks of him, he could be like one of those like underrated stars in the league going forward. I think the Raptors and Masai Ujiri take one more swing here. They wanted to trade up for Giannis so badly back in 2014, and I think this is their second
Mm-hmm.
chance at not like a Giannis prospect, but someone who like can have that high ceiling. Yes, it might be a risk, especially with like the floor he has, but
Yeah.
he has all the things that Masai likes. I think the Raptors go with Noah Senge here.
Wow. And TV kind of hinted to this last time when we did our draft profile when he spoke on Noah Essengay as a guy that he felt had real high level potential to go from being a dude who maybe is just like a casual rim runner to a dude who could be like really effective on both sides of the ball and just a high level passer, develop into a dude who can kind of create a full package. Not necessarily be this like all NBA caliber dude, but just a dude who like you can put out there for 30 plus minutes a game and you just know he's going to be impactful on both sides of the floor in one shape or form. So I'm not surprised that his name came up this early in our draft spot. I'm surprised at the fact that you picked him for your team though, just because of the fact that he is a guy that's super duper raw as a prospect. But like you said, the boom bust potential on a guy like Noah Essengate, especially when you think about a lot of the comps that we came up with last time when we did our
Yeah.
profile for him. This is a dude who, if he slots in the group that you have right now, where you still have Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, you have Scotty,
Yeah.
you have Brandon Ingram, right? You put them in a position, right?
Yeah.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. If this is a guy you hope hits, because if the version of him hitting,
He's going to be one of
yeah,
those valuable NBA players, man. Going to be one of those.
man.
And I mean, like I mentioned, like all NBA potential. Who knows what this guy could be? Just because there's such a high variance of what he can give you in the team. Even though, again, Malawatch is on the board. I understand how much like Raptors fans might be mad if he was on the board. He should be taken here. I'm taking the risk with Noah Essengate. I'm definitely taking that risk. Jay, 10th overall pick. Phoenix Suns now on the board. Who are you gonna go with?
Oh man, and TV, now I gotta hate on you heavy because you were supposed to make my pick easy. Because here's the thing: the Phoenix Suns don't have a single center on the roster. I had to double check this. If you go to their ESPN depth chart, they literally do not have a center position at this moment. So the question was not necessarily if there would be a center taken at 10. The question now becomes which one? Because beforehand, I thought you were going to take Kaman Malawatch, no problem, at 9, and Derek Queen would just be the pick at number 10.
I had a feeling that Derek Queen would have been one of your guys. Yeah,
that was supposed to be the move. But you know
I
what?
thought you were going to go with Malawatch with the Nets. That's why I was like, confident with Essengate.
Hey, man, but this is how the draft goes, man. That's what makes it so fun, dog. But here's the thing. I'm going to go with one of my guys in the draft, and I think a guy that's just a lot more ready for the NBA day one, especially when you give the fact that we don't know what the future plans of this team are. Obviously, if they decide to glean with Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and you move off of Devin Booker, and you're in a full reset, I think the answer is Kaman Malawatch. But I think if the idea is to keep Devin Booker, let Bradley Beal's contract play out, and maybe you move off of Jalen Green to add more depth, but you keep Dylan Brooks, which is the thing we kind of assume is going to be the move in all of this. I think you got to get a guy who's ready out the gate. I'm going to go ahead and go with the guy that has a more complete game right now, not nearly as raw of a prospect. I'm going with Derek Queen. He's one of my guys in this draft class. He's a near double-double machine. I think he could be a much better defensive player, but I think he has the upside of a guy who can be a high-level rim defender. He did average over a block a game and over a steal a game just last season. The three-point shooting is a little nasty, but the offensive shot creation that he presents, the reason why he's one of my favorite prospects in this draft class is because he resembles a guy who's one of my favorite prospects a couple seasons ago. That being now one of the best 6 men in the league, Naz Reid. He reminds me a lot of him as an offensive creator at that 4-5 position, a guy who can handle the ball a little bit off the dribble. He can create for himself. I think he is going to be a good shooter at the next level. The three-point shooting was not a calling card for him last year, but I think the free throw numbers tell us he has a good enough stroke to maybe step out there 4 or 5 times a game and give you something special. So I'm going to go with Derek Queen here. I was not expecting him to be at this spot calmly like this. I was expecting it to be one of those things that where, honestly, I'm not going to lie. When I first put my board together, I was so high on Derek Queen that I had him going back to his hometown and ending up in Washington at 6. It's just that the Trey Johnson and Ace Bailey stuff, it just screamed to me much more. And obviously once Trey Johnson was taken off the board first, I don't see Ace Bailey falling past 6. So everything just kind of lined up where Derek Queen being at this spot for the Suns, it's just that's us. If you can trade yourself out of Kevin Durant and get Jalen Green, who can maybe get you more things down the line, Dylan Brooks, who can help add to your defensive infrastructure, and then get the second best center in this class, if not maybe the best center in this class, depending on who you talk to, at number 10, that's a pretty good start to an offseason if I'm the Phoenix Suns.
Man, I'm surprised that I'm very surprised that you went Derek Queen. I thought I was gonna be like, man, this actually kind of fits for Malawatch perfectly over there for the Phoenix Suns. I felt like
he's
I almost
just so raw, bro.
He's raw. I get it. No, I get it.
Prospect, man.
Yeah, no, I get it. No. And what's funnily enough, Jay, because when we go to number 11 here, I like that pick because I was like, man, this guy's gonna go Malawatch, and I'm gonna take Derek Queen for the freaking Blazers. This is what I was gonna do. This is where I was gonna go here because here's my thing with Derek Queen. if he goes to the Blazers, right? I think he could start off his career as a 4. I honestly think like a 5, it's a bit iffy,
You
especially
talking
on
about
the defensive end.
Watch?
No, Derek Queen, Derek
Oh,
Queen.
I
I
was
think he
like,
could
wait
be
a
a
minute, what?
no, not
I was
watch.
like, whoa, this man has
No.
higher upside than I thought.
No. I was gonna say like Derek Queen was gonna be a nice little 4 there. I thought there was a good opportunity there for the Blazers, but I do like him with the Phoenix Suns. They definitely need some more creation on that front court. He's definitely one of the
Okay.
more like creative setters out there.
Okay.
As well. I'm a big fan of his game. I like him over there in Phoenix. I really do.
Oh,
Jay,
gotcha.
this our draft board is going all over the place, man.
Right.
This is crazy. Because with the Blazers, I thought that potentially Derek Queen was going to be there, but now
Uh-huh.
that Phoenix is on off the board, this guy I think it's a good fit here because I thought I had him like before this episode when the Rockets still had the pick. I was going to
Yeah.
go with Carter Bryant over there. So now with number 11, I'm just going to put Carter Bryant over here with the Portland
I
Trailblazers.
love that fit. Love that fit.
I think Carter Bryant, he is like again really good size there at 6'8", small forward. He's super athletic. He has the ideal physical tools. He's been developing. I mean, he's not the best 3-point shooter, but he's been developing that as throughout his college career. He's 46% from the field. In terms of someone that you want to kind of mold as your like perfect 3-and-D guy, I think that when you look at like the situation of the Portland Trailblazers, where they have a bunch of guard play, then you have Dia going into more of an on-ball type of role. You have potentially someone at the center position now with Donovan Clingan being that defensive anchor. You need some guys who could do some 3-and-D stuff. And Carter Bryant, it doesn't get much better than Carter Bryant here in the NBA draft. He's just someone who I know he doesn't play like he didn't have the best numbers there, but he showed like the perfect 3-and-D archetype. He showed flashes of that. And for someone that's like 19 years old and just in that perfect timeline with the Portland Trailblazers, I think him signing him at the like replacing Jeremy Grant in that position just works out perfectly. Give me Carter Bryant here with the Trailblazers.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's really interesting too is, I mean, think about the defensive capabilities of Toumani Camara, Denny Avdia, Carter Bryant, and Donovan Clingan holding the fort down at the center position.
They have a basis, bro. They have a basis there with the defense.
Oh my goodness! I mean, defensive infrastructure wise, bro, that might be on par with Houston. No bad. Like that group right there. Now, offensively, there are some questions. Offensively, there are some questions with that group. But defensively, that group might be up there on par with Houston as like the best defensive unit in the league. If we're talking about maybe a high level Scoot Henderson, you put Shaden Sharp. Well, I guess Shaden Sharp wouldn't be starting in that situation. But imagine a lineup that has like Scoot Henderson. You know, maybe you put Toumani Camara at the 2, Denny Avdia at the 3, and then you have a player like Carter Bryant at the 3-4, Donovan Clingan at the 5. Like, are you gonna get buckets? All off of effort. Definitely all off of effort and drives. But defensively, that might be the hardest 5 minutes any NBA player plays. Jesus.
Bro, it's crazy. He's a great defensive prospect. And like again, he could just slot into that 4 position like next to friggin' next to Donovan Clingan, and it's going to be hell for people there. Like, there's a good chance, and this is definitely a discussion for a different episode, but they could be like Houston like 2 years ago, like where they're like a 40-39 win team come next year, and they can like really like take that next step like for potentially going forward, and they're going to be going into the right direction with the playoffs. So yeah, I got Carter Bryant going at number 11. Jay, you're picking number 12. It's your Bulls. We've been waiting for this one, Jay. Jay, I think something has fallen to your lap. I don't know if you're going to go with it. This could be your chance.
I am. I'm not going to lie to you, brother. I am. And I'm not going to lie.
They're number 12. That is insane.
Yeah, man. At that point, you have to do it, right? Obviously, the future of Nikola Vucevic is not locked up long term. The idea of him being a guy that probably is one of the top names in the trade market this summer definitely has to be part of the discussions coming up moving forward. Zach Collins is our only other center on the roster because EJ Liddell, let's be honest, he's more of an undersized 4. We have Jalen Smith, but I don't think he's a starting level center just yet. Yeah. I don't necessarily know if he's really the successor to be a backup center just yet for us either. It's more of the third string center in most rotations, he probably is even on a team like this. Malawaz just has so much upside as a raw prospect with that kind of athleticism. And 7'2" is ridiculous. Let's also throw that in there. 7'2", 250 pounds is ridiculous. He's going to be an insane defender. TV, I love the idea. Because we probably won't have Lonzo Ball much longer. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. But the defensive front court of Matas Buzelis and Kaman Maluach gives me so many butterflies when I think about the idea of so many shots getting swatted to the 6th row, brother. Because I'm not going to lie to you, that athleticism in that front court in terms of rim defense is going to be crazy. Don't get me wrong. As a Bulls fan, there was 3 players that I would have loved to be here within that plot. Derek Queen, I would have loved for him to fall to 12.
Yeah.
Would have loved for it. Another player that I think would be interesting, but I don't necessarily think meets what our roster construction asks for, and that's Colin Murray Boyles. I like him as an NBA-ready prospect out the gate. We also just gave Patrick Williams 4 years, $80 million. So
Yeah.
you pair that with the fact that we have him, and we also want Matas Buzelis to play.
Yeah.
The fact that Colin Murray Boyles is pretty much a solidified 4-man, he is a power forward through and through, that just feel like we're drafting over at the same position in a situation where we don't have the versatility to really get that guy real minutes, right? And then the other guy that would have came to mind, and he still is to a certain extent, and it's kind of funny because he's a real faller in our draft, probably would have been Jeremiah Fears, given the fact that Lonzo Ball might not be on his roster long term. But I'm sorry, TV, if Kamon falls to 12, you just jump at the opportunity, bro. He's and a lot of people's big boards is ranked as the top center in the entire draft. He falls to 12 for a team that's gonna need center depth, given the fact that Nikola Vucevic isn't locked up long term and might be on the trade block. Yeah, you just got to do the right thing as Bulls front office at that point, bro. Just do the right thing.
Man, yeah, it's weird because again, this is gonna be like we have 2 like big fallers in our draft, which is kind of crazy the way our draft kind of went about. But yeah, Common Malawatch, especially with like the with how like the defensive potential being 7'2", being this athletic. If you want to talk about a unicorn defensively at the center position, you might get one in Common Malawatch. I know he's raw; he's definitely a raw prospect. But in terms of like potential on that end, being able to just be a defensive system all on himself. We talk about like a Rudy Gobert being a system all unto itself. Common has that potential to do that. He fits right there for the Bulls, especially like when you want to move on from Vucevic. He's great.
Yeah.
But Jay, 13. The Atlanta Hawks. I'm gonna tell you right now, I was gonna go Ace and Newell here with the 13th pick. I was going to. But with Jeremiah Fears dropping this far down and just the amount of talent that he had that he has there, I think I'm gonna take him here with the 13th pick.
And you're right.
I know Trae Young is
you're right.
I know, but here's the thing though, like Trae Young obviously is on this team. Yes. But the amount of time this man has been in trade rumors, like, it's like if somehow, some way, Jeremiah Fears like drops all the way down here. Again, he's giving me like John Wall vibes. The way he's like being able to be so explosive off the on the court, he's showing to be like good his good like point guard instincts, good size there at 6'6", like man. If he's on the board right now, I gotta take him if I'm the Atlanta Hawks. Just pure talent wise, he's the best guy on the court. I don't think. Funnily enough, I mean he's 6'4", not 6'6". But funnily enough, I think I don't think he's gonna drop all the way down here. But at the same time, if the Hawks have this opportunity, he's gonna fit right. I think he's gonna be a damn good fit if you want to go long term, fit him next to Dyson Daniels. He just has the athleticism. He has just good potential there. I just on the pure potential and just talent alone, I'm gonna have to put Jeremiah Fears here with the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those steal of the draft kind of conversations where if you get Jeremiah Fears at 13, what the heck? I
mean, we saw Tyrese Halliburton drop all the way to 12, and I was so confused back in the day when that was happening. If this happens with Jeremiah Fears, I'm like, who's gonna take him? I mean, Atlanta at this point, I'm like, I know you got Trae Young, you gotta make that decision.
And here's the thing, TV. Here's the thing. Again, very good defensive infrastructure for this kind of team, right?
Yes.
Very good defensive infrastructure. You're talking about lineups where you could potentially have Jeremiah Fears on the floor with Dyson Daniels, with Jalen Johnson at the 4, with Zachary Ricochet, who has real positional size, with Onyeka Okongwu as well. And they're probably going to obviously try to go after a backup center at 22. right? So
Yeah.
you have your 6 to 7 man lineup right there with Trae Young, Jeremiah Fears, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Zachariah Risache, Onyeka Okongwu, and then whoever you draft at 22. And you still have Karis LeVert locked up long term as well. And you have
Yeah.
Terrence Mann on this roster. That's a cool 9. That's a
Yeah.
calm 9. You still might want to go after another like lob threat center in the offseason because Clint Capella, you're probably going to just let him walk to go get a guy that maybe is a little bit younger. Maybe you put together something to go after one of these younger centers on the market. I know that oh my goodness, there's a handful of guys. The backup center for Brooklyn comes to mind,
Yeah.
right? There's a handful of different guys that might be interesting. Do you as Atlanta maybe call up somebody like Gershon Yabusele, right? That could be an interesting situation.
Yeah.
You get him as a backup center, right? But look at all the defense around Trae Young then. If you
Yeah.
pair Jeremiah Fears in with what they already have structurally for this team, oh man, if Jeremiah Fears falls to 13, I'm not gonna say he's the steal of the draft, but dang, he's in the top 5 of guys that would be the steal of the draft in that conversation if he falls
Yeah. No, like
all the way down there.
he has a good handle, good
Yeah.
like pick and roll ball handler. He's
Yeah.
just smooth when in terms of like getting to the paint and stuff like that. Like if the Hawks like get him here, he's like, whoa, how the heck did he fall all the way down here? That's a damn good pick. Damn good pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Final pick, 14th overall. We have the San Antonio Spurs back here. Who do you think they're gonna pick with their second one here?
TV. They said he had a Kawhi Leonard comp. So I gotta go for it. I'm gonna take that dive. One of my other guys in this draft class is Cedric Coward. I love everything about what this guy
I'm
brings
so
to the
glad
table.
he got mentioned on this list. I'm so
Come
glad
on,
for
man. It's just I'm not look, man. I'm not gonna say match made in heaven, but every page I went to, I was trying to look for comps. The same name came up every time. Kawhi of this 3-and-D polished prospect that although he still has a certain ceiling that he hasn't reached yet, that's what actually makes him more dangerous, is that he can be a high-level defender. He can shoot the 3 ball off the catch at a high clip. He can put the ball on the floor. He can get to the rim. He can finish strong around the basket, right? He gives you real floor spacing. He's a high-level decision maker. We had to see it against high-level competition because obviously his time at Washington State was kind of cut dry, right?
Exactly.
But at the same time, this is a guy that if they can get the best out of him, and we know San Antonio is one of the best, player development locations you can go to in this league. You get a guy like that who still, even at an older age as a prospect, you can make the argument, is still relatively raw in terms of what he can be at the next level. He can be a guy who I think can easily step in and be a higher level 3-and-D guy than what they're already getting out of Keldon Johnson from day one. Not only does that make Keldon Johnson expendable, but also I think you're getting a guy who can be a high level contributor out the gate. TV, what the heck are we talking about? If there's a world where you have Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox in the backcourt, you have a guy like Keldon Johnson start maybe in the beginning, but then you can have a dude like Coward come off the bench, and you have Coward and Dylan Harper in your second unit? What are we talking about right now? What are we talking about right now?
No, Jay, when I was thinking that 4th overall pick, I again, we talked about how both of us are high on him. We're both super high on Cedric Coward here. It was either going to be him or that other dude, like the power forward. Was it Rasheer Fleming? That's the other guy I was thinking of in this position. Those two guys, I feel like match made in heaven there in San Antonio. I think both of those guys would have been fine here, but Cedric Coward, I'm glad, especially because he's one of our guys. I'm glad that you were able to put him on that list. I think he would be a fantastic fit over there in San Antonio. I know people are gonna be weary of the risk, especially since he only played 6 games this year.
Yeah,
but I think again his skill set, his upside too high. His 3-point shooting ability, he's able to move off ball. Yo, the Spurs might be kind of crazy in the next year or two, bro. I'm excited to see what they'll do. Cedric Coward, final pick here. Jay, are you ready to go through this? Do this NBA mock draft that we had? Let's go through it,
man. Well, don't we have? Because we still have to. Oh no, that was 14. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, wow, we had so much fun. We breezed through it. I didn't even realize we were on the last part. I'm like, dang, wait a minute, we have more picks. No, we don't.
No, we got.
Oh man,
so a double overall pick. The Spurs are taking Cooper Flag. Sorry. Wow. The Mavericks are taking Cooper Flag. Number 2, the Spurs are selecting Dylan Harper. At the 3rd overall pick, we have the Philadelphia 76ers taking VJ Edgecombe. At the 4, we have We have the Charlotte Hornets taking Concanoopel. At the 5, we have the Utah Jazz taking Trey Johnson. The Wizards at 6 taking Ace Bailey. 7th overall pick, we have the New Orleans Pelicans taking Edgar Demon. At the 8, we have the Brooklyn Nets taking Yakashonis. At the 9, we have the Raptors taking Noah Essengay. At the 10, the Suns taking Derek Queen. 11, we have the Portland Trail Blazers taking Carter Bryant. At the 12, the Bulls get Kaman Maluwach. 13, we have the Atlanta Hawks going for Jeremiah Fears. And at number 14, the Spurs taking Cedric Coward. Jay, this is a pretty nuts mock draft.
Yeah, man. Oh my gosh. See, I was having so much fun. I was like, dang, TV, you want to do the whole first round? I caught myself lacking. But
Yeah.
dude, it's crazy to see not only just how some of the fallers happen, some of the risers we had within this draft class, some of the fits. I love some of these fits. I think you go just leaning in with the Trey Johnson pick at 5 and just doing the right thing, right? Just getting the guy that you just know fits perfectly for that team works.
Yeah.
I love what you decided to do with Noah Essengay for your Raptors. I feel like that kind of swing, we've seen Masai do this in a handful of different operations of going after just the guy that screams high upside. And everybody was a little weary about Scotty Barnes, right? We all thought Jalen Suggs was the auto pick, right? We all thought Jalen Suggs was the auto pick and that Fred VanVleet had his way out the door. They went with a guy in Scotty Barnes instead. And guess what? Only one of them has an All-Star game appearance. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
So you gotta lean with Masai, regardless of what his contract situation is right now. You cannot bat an eye at when this guy takes swings, because when he does, they are very much intentional. Scary intentional even, because the hit rate has looked really good here and there.
100%, man. Like, super excited for this draft. Before we clock out though, Jay, your top 3 guys that in this draft, we talked about like our guys being here. Who are your top 3 guys that you're gonna have in this draft?
Yeah, man. So obviously I ended on my favorite guy. My favorite guy is Cedric Coward. I think that wherever he lands is going to be an amazing fit. I would have loved to get him for the Bulls, and I would have loved to take that risk at 12. The reason why I didn't is because we've been tricked by the Kawhi Leonard comp before. Remember, we have a guy who they're calling the Paul, right? And that has and now we owe him $20 million a year. So I hate that I keep having to take shots at Patrick Williams on this podcast, but it's also affecting our drafting ability, because I would love to have Cedric Coward on this team. He's number 1. Number 2, Derek Queen. Is he a Maryland guy, so he has to be one of my favorite? Of course. Would I have loved him to land on the Washington Wizards? Of course. But in this case, do I think that him landing with a team like Phoenix is like perfect? Also, yes, I love that position for them, and I love that if they're able to trade into this, with them being able to trade into this draft, they get a starting caliber center right out the gate that can contribute. He has a handful of different things he can bring to the table out the gate. He can be a high-level defender, and he's going to be a guy who can also give you some offensive firepower as well. I love him as a player. And then the other guy that we did not discuss in this episode, but is a guy that please get this man to a contender. I'm talking the Clippers. Right? I'm talking about maybe a Miami Heat team, right? I'm talking about maybe as a backup point guard for the Celtics or the Timberwolves. I'm watching for where Cam Jones gets drafted.
Yo, you love your boy Cam Jones.
I'm watching for where Cam Jones gets drafted. I love this guy at Marquette. I think that he's a high-level shooter. I think he's one of the best shooters in the draft class. I think that last year didn't prove that as much because he had so many more on-ball responsibilities than he had the previous 3 seasons. We've seen in years past he can be a high-level, high-volume three-point shooter. He makes great decisions. He's an active defensive player at the point guard position. Good size at near 6'5". Can get to the basket, can get to the free throw line. I just love everything he brings to the table. The fact that he can play the 1 or the 2 is huge for me as well. Man, if he can land on the Clippers, like I said, if he can land on Minnesota, who might end up missing out on Nickeil Alexander-Walker this summer because somebody's going to give him a bag. Hopefully my Chicago Bulls consider him, right? Yeah. If he can land on a team like that, if he can be a backup point guard for the Golden State Warriors, I pray he doesn't fall all the way down to 41. But if he can be a backup point guard for the Golden State Warriors, or be another point guard, shooting guard for the Boston Celtics at 32, or even at 28, as high as 28, I would love that. But Cam Jones, man, I'm going to be watching this guy heavy next year.
Yeah, no, those are some great picks, man. Again, a couple guys that we talked about already with Cedric Coward, we talked about earlier, like a few weeks ago on the pod, Cam Jones. like these are some good picks. And Derek Queen, he was one of the guys I was expecting that I was like kind of looking around for the Raptors pick too. So shout out to Derek Queen. I hope he has like a good chance, especially if he gets drafted, like you said, to the Phoenix Suns. All right, Jay, here are my three guys. One, Noah Essengay. As you can tell by like how high I am as a player, I think again a big swing for someone like the Toronto Raptors who want to go for him. Potentially someone like a Blazers or Phoenix Suns who they want to take a chance on, like a guy who's a pretty raw prospect, but in terms of boom bust potential, he has so many of like the right like tools that you want to have, and like he again good boom or bust potential over there. My second guy here, I talked about him last week on the podcast, like when I was talking about some prospects on my own. Rasheer Fleming. Big Rasheer Fleming fan over here. Just great, great size at 6'9", 7'5" wingspan. Could be a fantastic defender. Improved his 3-point shot. I just love the way that he is able to like kind of take like those non-abilities that he had earlier on in his college career and turn them into actually positives. And I think that seeing that work ethic, seeing that ball of energy, I think can help so many contending teams. So Rasheer Fleming, definitely one of those guys I'm going to be on the lookout for. I'm going to be super excited to see what he could do. And Jay, I'm going to go with no one ever talked. I don't think we've like even mentioned this guy before, but I've just become just so enamored with him when looking through these draft prospects. He's going to be definitely a second round pick. Kobe Brea.
Ooh,
I think for me is. I'm so excited. Yo, when I see this guy, I just see like Duncan Robinson on steroids when I see Kobe Brea, where I see someone who's like high, big wing, best shooter in the draft for me. Like one of the best shooters in the draft. He needs little to no space in order to get that shot off. He has a good size to be able to defend. He's not going to be a primary playmaker, but he's great at making that extra pass. I just think with someone who's this good at a 3-point shooting, which is again going to be the biggest, of course, is the biggest craze in the NBA. With the size, with the ability to move off screens, the amount of like different actions that you could put him into, I think he could be such a good steal for someone in the second round. Even like someone like who was like a high second round pick, I think should take a swing on someone like Kobe Brea. He's gonna be my third guy over there.
I love that name because Kobe Brea is gonna be a guy that I feel like I agree with you is gonna be an interesting fit for somebody for just what he brings to the table. And I think the most interesting thing too is just because he's a dude that with his like just like every part of him upside wise says knockdown shooter, and that's just going to be something that translates out the gate. And you just have to think to yourself, especially on the right type of team, being able to stretch the floor as an older prospect that just also knows how to play the game the right way. It's just going to bring a lot to the table. He's going to be NBA ready out the gate, which just tells you that you could throw him on one of these, maybe not championship level rosters, but a playoff caliber team, right? Or even if he is on one of these young teams, he can be on a young team and just make the job easier for maybe one of these younger point guards. I think of like a Utah, for example, right? With one of these younger point guards where he could just be a knockdown 3-point shooter next to them to make the job a little bit easier. So he's a dude that I think is going to take a lot of pressure off. He's got a lot of grit to him. You got to love that as well.
Yes, exactly.
Really interested to see what he brings to the table. Love that.
Super excited for him as a player. Those are our top three. Let us know what you guys think of this NBA mock draft. I think that went pretty crazy. Some guys are going to definitely like if this ends up happening, I think like this NBA draft could go pretty nuts. But yeah, let us know down below what you guys think. Some other prospects that we didn't mention as well. We want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Jay, this episode went a lot longer than I thought, but we were having so much fun with talking about these prospects. This draft is going to be absolutely crazy come Wednesday. We're going to be reacting to some of these draft picks as Wednesday goes along. What do you have to tell these people before we have to sign out, though? This has been a great episode.
Dude, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the NBA offseason. Desmond Bane has been traded to the Orlando Magic. Kevin Durant is a Houston Rocket. The NBA draft is in 24 hours. Is within the next 72 hours?
72 hours, yeah.
And excuse me, the 24 hours is the crowning of our next NBA champion, by the way.
Which is insane.
Welcome to the NBA summertime, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to have a ton of content for you guys. I have not been as active on the TikTok. That changes on Monday. I am going to have some special things cooked up for you guys in terms of putting out some different content, not only going into the draft, but just some off-season stuff to really take a closer look at some of these teams as we look at some of the things that are going to be really interesting across the league, some of the higher level free agents, some of the lower level free agents, some of the money cap flexibility situations. I'm really going to dive into those things over the next couple of weeks. as the beginning of the NBA offseason really, really starts to kick off. So stay tuned for that. TV has been a godsend in terms of staying on top of all of this news, and I know he's going to be even more locked in on that stuff once the Shams tweets really start rolling, starting on Monday. And man, after a long 2024-2025 NBA season, we will have an NBA champion, which guess what? Means the new meta is going to be established too, TV. There's going to be a new team building meta. At first, it was,
we're going to talk about that tomorrow because I have a lot of thoughts with this new team building meta and like and why this NBA draft is so important as well in terms of the team building.
Man.
So it's just super exciting. The fact that both of us said that it was going to be a Thunder in 6 and now we're at a Game 7, like, bro, I'm so excited for that. NBA basketball, we're back, man. The NBA draft is around the corner. The NBA offseason is on the corner. It's going to be fantastic. So make sure you're tapped in with the Hit Your Free Throws podcast to be covered by all of that. Make sure you check us out. All of our individual socials will be down there as well. All of our links are going to be fantastic. And make sure you follow along with us for our next episode, which is coming out tomorrow, reacting to the fully breaking down the Kevin Durant trade, looking through this NBA Finals stuff. I mean, just crazy stuff, man. It's going to be an excellent time. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out. Peace.